kind of using your last statement as a springboard, do you find it difficult being an actor and a creative person given that you're limited by what's already there, to create for yourself?
You know what? It's for some it is a limit, and for some it is a challenge. It's like if you think you're good at throwing a football, and you're like, hey, watch me throw this football, and you're whipping it 60 yards, and you're throwing it, and then somebody goes, yeah, okay, hit that bullseye right there. You might be the kind of person who goes, oh, are you kidding? I can't, no way. Or you go, all right, you know what I mean? And you take it as a real challenge. I know I'm good at this, and so now I'm going to really focus my skills, and I'm going to try to hit the bullseye. And that's kind of the challenge with anime. Is, there could be people that could go in, voice actors that could go into a studio, go into the voice booth and watch the animation of a character's voice and go, I am going to talk this way now to match the flaps. And they might mechanically match the flaps, but there's no performance there, you know what I mean? As opposed to somebody else comes in, okay, they look at this really strange cadence of flaps and like, okay, I can do this, and they take it as a real, as a fun kind of a challenge. And I think most of the people that do it well look at it that way. It's a challenge to be sobbing or screaming or doing some very emotional scene and making it sound believable. And yet at the same time, you're putting all the little pauses in the right place. You're speeding up toward the end, like the character does, and you're doing your best to match the mechanical movements on screen, and that's the real challenge. Some people are good at one, some people are good at the other, and then some people have developed the skills in both. And I think that's what makes the difference with a lot of good voice acting, a lot of good dubs, as opposed to we've all seen bad dubs. Yeah.
I know these recording shows here go on for long periods of time, and obviously this sounds really challenging. Do you ever do anything to break the ice, or bring any of your antics into the weird and like?
Sure, we always do that.
Do you ever
yes.
drive them a little crazy?
Oh yeah. In fact, sometimes whenever I start a new show, one of the first questions I'll ask the director is, "Do you want outtakes? Or are we really taking this seriously?" And some of the shows they'll be like, "Oh yeah, bring them on," And so if we're moving along at a really good pace, and we're making good time, and I'll think to myself, okay, so and so hasn't recorded yet. Maxie, for instance, who's playing Al. Maxie's not recorded yet. I think I'll leave her a little bomb, and I'll be, Al, we better such and such, and then I'll say something really like, like pointed right at Maxie, some little joke. And, and the directors will mark it and play it when Maxie comes in to record. She'll be all intense, ready to do her outline, and all of a sudden she'll hear me say something as Ed. So whenever we get the chance, it's always fun to do that. It does break the ice, and it's a lot of fun. It brings a fun atmosphere to the session. But there are other shows like, we gotta get this done. Go. Next line. And there's really not a chance for that. Video games are often like that. Video games, how fast can you go? And how much can we get done in the hour that we have you? And so, but there are plenty of times within shows where we have a lot of fun with each other.
Are there any experiences in video games specifically where they have you for that hour and that they end up cutting lines because they're almost over the hour?
That's never happened.
No? They always try to get a full performance.
In fact, what happens more times, and I can't speak for the other voice actors, but I know my experience with video games is always I'm done considerably earlier than they scheduled me. We go faster than they expected. And so what often happens is they'll start looking through the script to find other stuff for me to do. Like, oh, here's this store owner. Here's this store owner who goes, you can't get out of here. Whatever, stupid. Just dumb stuff, what I mean? They'll look for for things to fill the time because they're paying me for 2 hours, you know, and I've done video games before where like they had booked me for 3 days, 3 4-hour sessions for 3 days, and we were done the first day in 3 hours. Let's find other stuff, and they look through and find a whole bunch of like Fighter A and Soldier B, and you know just a whole bunch of miscellaneous things just to get as much for the time, you know, out of the time as they can. Usually in video games, I mean, they get more than they need. You know, they want to make sure to get everything they possibly could think of because, you know, that's their one chance usually. So I've never really seen one where they cut lines. Usually they try to get you to do more than they originally planned.
As your voice acting career goes, have you ever had any negative experience with your career? Like you've worked with someone who was not good, they were really strict on you to get it right and stuff when you were really trying your best?
I don't think you could do anything for 13 years and not have negative experiences. There are only a few things in an overwhelmingly positive career that I would consider negative like that. One would be, there have been occasions where I've worked with directors who didn't know what they wanted. And if you do this long enough, you know what it needs to be. You know what I mean? Like, it would be like hiring somebody to come and do something, and they know exactly what they're doing, and and you could just basically go, you know what, go for it. You know this. This is why you're here because this is what you do. Instead of, and occasionally, not very often, but occasionally, you may get someone who feels like they need to validate the fact that they're directing. So even if you give them like a spot-on performance, the first line is like perfect. They're like, yeah. Okay. Let's do it a little louder. He's right up in her ear, talking like this. Yeah, okay, let's just try one that way. You know what I mean? So you'll do it louder, and they're like, okay, that was a little short. Can you slow it down a little bit? And they'll direct you 5 or 6 times, and guess where you'll end up? Right where you started, with the first line you gave them. And your voice is perishable. You know what I'm saying? It gets tired after a while. So there are people that are very good at what they do, and their instincts are good, their timing is good, and that's why they get hired. Because while most voice actors may do 20, 25 lines in an hour, these people will do 40 lines an hour, 45 lines. They're good, and their performances are good. But when you bring somebody like that in, and then you start trying to overmanage them, and you're not even really sure exactly what you want, you're just kind of poking around, because you're directing, so I guess you should direct. I guess you should tell them to do something different, instead of just, letting them do what they do. There are very few directors like that, but it happens occasionally, and that's frustrating. I don't know if I would call it negative as much as I would call it it's just kind of discouraging, because your voice starts to get tired. You're working 3 times as hard, as you would normally work. And it does sometimes alter the atmosphere that you're talking about, that, fun atmosphere. We're doing something fun here. We're having a blast. This is great. But sometimes, that can kind of put a damper on the atmosphere.